Welcome home. This is the Irish Roots Cafe, where every day's a holiday, and there's always room for one more. Hey, come right this way. Have a seat with me today in the corner booth one more time, celebrating episode number 130 of the Irish Family History Podcast. Hey, Sweeney, clear the floor. Katie, bar the door. Molly, put on another pot of Irish coffee and bring out the Irish dancers. It's time we get this show on the road. We've got another full house today, not a chair to spare. I'm Mike OLaughlin, your host. You can reach me on my webpage at irishroots.com and check out my written show notes on the blog. There's always a few extra things there, just like there's always a few extra things on the podcast side. And remember, you can search all of our books and videos and just about everything you want, even and the blog on my webpage, so be sure to go to irishroots.com. And remember, you can phone area code 816-256-3360 to leave your comments on my recorder. Try it, you'll like it. Among today's topics, Donoughue Part 2 is the Irish family of the day. How Irish is Montserrat? Searching for Gleason, Spiering, McIlhaney, and Bowen. Top 10 Irish American films. History of Aghadoe, County Kerry. Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Monument. The Irish Emigrant. And have you ever heard of Gormflaith? Gormflaith. That's it. That's back in Brian Boru's days. We'll talk a little bit about that, too. And we've got that and a lot more, so stay tuned. This is going to be a good one, folks. Where are our notes for this week? They're going to be, what's happening here? Well, the Irish hedgerow history lessons are now being recorded. And I've mentioned that before, and it's really been a lot of fun. Can you imagine sitting down and talking intelligently trying to talk intelligently for 1 hour on the times of Brian Boru, his rise to power, and his family, and the battle with the Vikings at Clontarf? I tell you, that's what we did, and we still had information left over. So that's going to be on our Irish Hedgerow History Lessons podcast that's going to be coming up soon. We've got our announcement out there, and you can go subscribe right now on iTunes or on our webpage. And I'll have the link to that on the blog, of course, too, as well as on the webpage. And, I was mentioning Gormflaith, and she was an amazing woman. She was sister to one Irish king, wife to two other Irish kings, and a wife to a Viking king, and the Viking king of Dublin. And her son became king of Dublin, Viking king of Dublin. And they met at the Battle of Clontarf, the whole lot of them. And that's just part of our Irish Hedgerow History broadcast coming up soon. So stay tuned for interesting little tidbits like that. And did you know the Irish hedge schools appeared in the Pinnell days in the 17th century of Ireland? And they're not the same thing as the old Bardic schools, which were much more regimented and, it's a whole other idea altogether. But the ending of the Bardic schools came about just about the same time the hedge schools had to come about because, the same incidents really put an end to the one and the start of the other. And we'll be talking about that more on our new series. As a matter of fact, we're going to have one whole episode on the hedgerow series just on the old Bardic schools and one just on the hedgerow schools. So it's a pretty interesting topic. And, we're still over there at Irish Central working on some new things, too. That should be interesting. I expect to hear from them pretty soon, but we're up and running. We're just waiting for them to finish up their deal. Now we're going to move on to the books of the month. Well, today we're just going to name County Kerry, Ireland, Genealogy and Family History Notes. That's the spiral-bound book for people that want to look inside and actually do research in County Kerry. We've got a few family histories in there, but it's full of, I'll say, the families that have coat of arms. We've got those in there with the coat of arms from the old heraldic works, and we've got some place names and a map and the places where to go, who to write to, and anything else interesting I could put in there for for starting your research actually in County Kerry itself. And the second book is The Families of County Kerry, Ireland, which is really, it's my collection of family histories for County Kerry, Ireland. And there's a whole lot in there. And you know what? There's a whole lot in there for the name of the day today, too, which is Donahue or Donahue. That's my mother's side of the family, so I was sure not to give them any short shrift in any book I ever did. And so if you're looking for more Donahue information, there's some in there, too, quite a bit. And then, there's several other books written. There's some generic books written on O'Donohue. I think one was by Rod O'Donohue, and Anthony Matthews did one of those general books on the name in Ireland. So, and plus there's all kinds of Donahues that have written their family histories and have them published and out there that you can get just about anytime you want it on the web, one way or another. So there's all kinds of new places to research. Well, hey, you know what? We are going to have more on the Donahues of County Kerry here in just a minute. But you know what time it is now? It's time to raise our eyes skyward, give thanks, and ask for help. Here are today's Magnificent Seven. Number 1, welcome new member Joseph Cairns of Howard Beach, New York. Number 2, welcome new member E. John Martin of Oak Ridge, Oregon. Your Irish Family's Great and Small book and county books have shipped. And they say that they're searching for their great-great-great-aunt Mary Catherine Gleason's roots. She came to America as a 13-year-old. She married Peter Spiering in Portland, Oregon around June in 1889. They had 7 kids, and after his death in 1905, she remarried an unknown man and later died about 1920 in Rory or Verboot, Oregon. Number 3, welcome new member Janice Butner of Lexington, Kentucky. And they're searching for a whole lot of things. And it says, at present, I am interested in the surnames McIlhaney and Bowen. Number 4, Stephen Cooper of Belfast, Northern Ireland. Your County Tyrone genealogy book has shipped. Graham Lacey of Wanneroo, Australia. Your County Clare genealogy and families of County Clare books have shipped. Michael Bilberry of Houston, Texas, your Irish Book of Arms has shipped. And Scott Bannister of South Windsor, Australia, your County Tipperary book has shipped. Oh, and I also got a note on Twitter from Gould Genealogy, and we've shipped our whole set of the 34-book set of Irish family research books to them, and they've got 1 or 2 cartons, and the third carton got a little delayed by the postal authorities, I think, and that's supposed to get there this week, so they should have them all. It's just a matter of how quick they can put them in stock and on their computer. So if you're in Australia, you might give them a look up and tell them I sent you. Tell them you heard about it here. Hey, and that reminds me to say thank you to each and every member like I do each week, because each and every week it's because of you that I'm here. And without you, the podcast would not be possible. So thank you very much. Now, let's move on to the Irish family name of the day. Well, the name of the day is O'Donohue, or shortened to Donahue sometimes. And you can spell that O-D-O or O-D-A at the beginning of the name, and the end of the name can be H-U-E. You can just interchange those vowels about any way you want. And in the middle there, you can have a G-H or an H for the Hugh part. So I've got a list there on the blog, and you can check that out easy enough. Today's family history is going to be in honor of member Dwayne O'Donohue. That's why we picked it out here. Now, there's, like I mentioned, several variant spellings of the name, and we'll have those on the blog. You can figure that out, I think, pretty quick, and I've covered a lot of this before, so we won't duplicate it here. We've got it in at least variant spelling groups number 2243 and number 531 from the Master Guide to the Spelling of Irish Family Names, and a link to that book's on the blog too. Now let's just take another little look at the history of the name, especially for our member here. Now we're talking about the Kerry branch of the family. There's 1 or 2 other branches, don't you know, in Ireland, and you have to research the family to be sure, but since I know the family in Kerry the best, I'm going to just part with that again with you. And I'm taking most of this from the Families of County Kerry book, and there's more in there, several columns on it, but I just thought I'd mention a little here now. And chiefs of the family, you can find them in the annals of Ireland from the 10th to the 13th centuries. They're well noted. And you know what? Their ancestors of the Donahues, Dubda Barine, the best I can pronounce it, he showed up with Brian Boru at the Battle of Clontarf and had a few things to say. So he was there at that big battle, as well as a lot of other families from that area and from Munster in the south of Ireland. So you're going to find him mentioned a lot in those annals with the battles and the rise to power and sometimes the fall in power. Now, the Loughlin branch was said to be extinct, and you had no chiefs of the clan being elected after the Geraldine confiscations and the abolition of clanship. Now, you go down to about 1013. That's just before the Battle of Clontarf, I think, depending on who recorded the dates. You got some dates there, even in the Annals of the Four Masters. Everything's different by a year than it is from other books, so it depends on where you started the year one at. But this battle, this was for the Eugenians, and that's somehow what they call the Owenots, or the Owens. And it's the families of, say, O'Mahony and O'Donohue of South Munster. And they both had the same tribal name. Both came from the same tribe and split at some point in history. And, those people started to adopt individual family names there just right around the time of the Battle of Clontarf, which was 1014 in Ireland. So that's a critical time to look at. If you're taking this genealogy hobby all the way to an extreme, you'll be able to trace your family name, a lot of folks, back to that point. Now, a lot of folks didn't take names till centuries later, but that's sort of where they say it all started. And you can see both the O'Mahonys and the O'Donohue families. They were at that battle at Clontarf, and they're noted as being good ones. And the direct ancestors of the Mahonys actually commanded his family, and the direct ancestor of the Donahues also commanded another group of troops. If you look a little closer at that history of the O'Donohues, you're going to find out that those O'Mahonys, they actually forced the O'Donohues from County Cork in the 12th century. And that landed them up into Kerry, where they settled around Killarney and Loughlin and, of course, Glenflesk. And they're often referred to as the Owenot or Eugenian chiefs of Loughlin, and that's the area there around Killarney. And in 1107, McCarthy More gave the lands of Moriarty of Loughlin to the O'Donohue More. So that was a big switch in power there. And the O'Donohue family then split into two distinct branches, the Loughlin branch, which was Ross Castle, and the O'Donohues of Glenflesk, which were seated at Killaha Castle, not too far away from Ross Castle there. I think if you had a signal fire, you could see them real easy from the top of each tower. Now, in 1158, the O'Donohue More rebuilt the church at Aghadoe, and I think they used that graveyard quite a bit. And Jerpoint Abbey was founded in 1180 by Donoughue O'Donohue. Now, we've also got a web link later in this podcast or on our blog for a little bit of the history on Aghadoe, to give a little more information to those families that are in that area. Hope you'll enjoy that. And then you'll see also that the Donahues remained pretty loyal to the Irish cause, and they were very prominent right to the time of Elizabeth, and they allied themselves with the Earls of Tyrone and Desmond, who were given that great last gasp of freedom fighting for them, and they lost their estates because the Irish lost. And that's when O'Donohue More became extinct. And many accounts and legends of the O'Donohues can be found, including those in the book in Wendell's Notices of Cork and Killarney. You have some interesting legends and stories if you're a Donahue. Of course, there's stories about other folks in there too, so keep that in mind if you're from the area. And, of course, what was it? Last year or two, a DNA test has said that the Donahues of the Glen don't actually have the blood of the Donahues in them according to DNA. Now, perhaps O'Donohue meant follower of O'Donohue instead of grandson of O'Donohue. Or, back in the beginning when all this first started with the O's and the Macs, O'Donohue could have been the mother's side of the family, so they still could be an O'Donohue. They were just descended through their mother's side, so they would have been tied directly to the family. But that's another whole story. I'm going to have to do a show on that, the O's and Macs separately. There's quite a story, because Mac or Mac Mick could actually be the same as O, because son of is the same as grandson of, and O means grandson of, and Mac Mick would be son of the son of. Of course, O would be a whole lot easier to write. Maybe that's why it won out. But there's a whole story there, and we'll talk about that later. Hey, if you take a look at the Irish Book of Arms, yes, you will find the Donahue family in there, and they've got a couple of two foxes there rampant. I think that means they're facing each other and sort of fighting up on 2 feet, just ready to go at it. At one time, my uncle thought those were 2 lions because our family would much more be like 2 lions fighting than just 2 foxes. That doesn't make sense. He thought they were awful scrawny-looking foxes. No, he thought they were scrawny-looking lions. Then I had to explain to him, no, those are foxes. And he says, are you sure? Why would they have 2 foxes fighting on a coat of arms? Well, I think it has something to do with intelligence, don't you? And there's, of course, the eagle on top of that coat of arms. So the crest there are on top of the coat of arms itself. So it's an interesting little design. And, of course, it's in all the books. It's been there for a while. They were recognized for a long time. Hey, coming up this episode, we'll have a link on the one person's pick for the top 10 Irish films or Irish American films. And now we're going to move to, let me see, the last little bit here, the Free Master Index Search of Irish Names. That's where you can go to search your Irish name or any other Irish name for free. Just don't put the Mac or O on the front of the name. Just type it right in that little box. And all the books with your name in it that we've done come up. So that can give you some clues and hints. You can go to the library and get that book and borrow it for free. Or if you were of a kind mind, you could actually order that book from me or from Amazon. But I'm talking too much now. Now, if you take a look in both of our County Kerry genealogy books that I mentioned earlier, you're going to find the Donahue families in there very quickly and very easily. So just about any book that focuses on Kerry, you're going to find Donahues in there, but those 2 sure have it. And, of course, you have the Annals of Ireland by the Four Masters. They're covered in there quite a bit. And Missouri Irish includes the family history of Patricia Donahue. I think she's related to me somehow. Number 4, Irish families on the County California Trail have several Donahues, including P. Donahue and J. Donahue. And number 5, let me see, Clare, Limerick, Kerry, Meath, and Westmeath spiral-bound county genealogy books also have the Donahue name, and that, of course, would be some other septs of the Donahues as well. And you're going to find it in Families of Dublin and Families of Clare, as well as our County Fermanagh book. So there's no lack of information. You're going to have to take a pretty healthy guess at to what county you think your family came from if you're looking. And or take a look at our index there and see what you think. You might have some tip-offs there. Now it's time we move on to the websites of the week. Number 1, Irish Connections Canada. There's an article on discovering Irish roots there, so that's part of the Irish Canada magazine, I believe. It's irishcanadamag.com, link on the blog. Number 2, the history of Aghadoe, County Kerry. And we've stayed up there on some of the tours of people I've taken to Ireland. We've stayed in the cottages up on the hill. I think they had to be sold back to the people after so many years, so they might not be available now. But I know there were some B&Bs too. It's a great place to stay and a famous view from that hill from, for centuries it's been written about. So it's a good place to take a gander down at. And, of course, the little graveyard type thing there is interesting too. Number 3, the searchable 1911 census is online and complete. We've been talking about that for, all year, I guess, as they keep adding more and more things. So Now it's up there and you can still search it in case you were waiting for that last county or two to be added. It's on there now. Number 4. Oh, that's at the National Archives, too, of Ireland. A link on the blog. Number 4, Irish Emigrant. Now, that's a blog for the Irish immigrant from across the world. And, gosh, you can find all kinds of information there for every county that's out there. And a lot of interesting news. So that's a good place to go. Oh, boy. Now we're going to move on to everybody's favorite, the end of the day, Curious News and Notes. Well, number 1, here I did run onto this interesting little article, How Irish is Montserrat? And, of course, it says they're talking about the Black Irish. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. I've seen the concept several times before. And, of course, that's a place where the British shipped some people, and the Irish might have multiplied down there. And it's a British colony, and they actually call themselves the Emerald Isle of the Caribbean. Now, you know, when you go into the country, I was reading and it said their immigration stamp, when they stamp it, it is a green shamrock. So you know there's got to be an Irish connection there somewhere. Well, if you take a look into the phone books and some of the other records, you're going to find, there were 132 families, the name of Allen, and 91 Ryans, and 81 Dailies, 68 Toots, or Twits, and or Tuatha maybe, 57 Farrells, 42 Riles, 38, now those Rileys, 42 Rileys, 38 Scarretts, 35 Sweeneys, 28 Browns, 26 Roaches, 19 Lynches, 16 Cartys, which could be McCarty, and 12 Kerwins. And you find the name O'Garrow, and we think that should have been O'Gara, but it got changed a little bit. And the Cabeys could have been the McCabes. And the Bradys, Brades, could just be the Bradys, Bradys, that we're more familiar with. But it's an interesting thing to think about, and you got the link there on the blog. Number 2, Covington DeVoe Park Monument to Ireland's Great Famine of 1845 to 1849 is being planned, and they say it would be a crown jewel not only for Covington, but for the greater Cincinnati and northern Kentucky region. It's always good to see the recognition of history and our heritage all across the United States, and there's one more spot. Link on the blog. Number 3, hey, here's a good Irish soda bread recipe with photographs and instructions. That's the kind of thing I need if I'm going to be making some soda bread. I need a picture. I misunderstand those little instructions. Number 4, Irish in America, the top 10 American films. Hey, they've got some good picks in these 10, but how in the world can you leave out The Quiet Man and call it a list? I don't know, especially a list of Irish American films. Well, got the link on the blog for that. You can compare your favorites to their favorites. Let me know what you think. Number 5, everybody knows that a jig can leave you in pain. And that's a lot of hard dancing there. You got a lot of pounding. And they found out that if you're doing those jigs, that Irish dance, you're going to have ankles that hurt a little bit more, or maybe you're a little bit, maybe a fallen ankle, and you got tears in your tendons. Well, it's true. They've done some studies on it, and I've got a link to that story on the blog. And number 6, who was Arthur Guinness? Well, they've done a lot of celebrating here lately about the Guinness anniversary. And the article here says, well, it depends on which one you mean. So for all you Guinness fans, I've got a link on the blog. That's out of the Irish Times. That does it. Boy, we had a good quick one today. I've got so many. I'm busier than a fiddler's elbow, to tell you the truth. And we're doing so much for the Irish Hedge podcast, plus this podcast. So we do appreciate your support. And if you haven't yet, go on over there and subscribe to the Irish Hedgerow podcast. You're going to learn some history. You're going to learn some things about your ancestors beyond maybe just the name and date. And you might even get some clues that tell you what they were doing or how they were doing it or where you should be looking for records. Well, remember to send your comments by clicking the contact link on our webpage at www.irishroots.com or send by mail to our American address, the Irish Roots Cafe, Box 7575, Kansas City, Missouri 64116. leave your message or report on things in your part of the world when you call my phone recorder at 816-256-3360. And you can always Skype me or find me on MySpace or Facebook or Twitter or even Irish Central there. They've got an area where you can comment on those blogs I'm leaving. And remember, members foot the bill, so they get first priority, but we're open to all. And by the way, a big thank you to all of our members. And away.